So you finally decided you want to have an AI system in your firm doing whatever it should do, but how to do it? You look at the free models that are out there, like Llama, and say, okay, we install that. Maybe it's not that easy. About that, we talk today to Guillaume Moutier. He is principal consultant of the AI business unit at Red Hat. And what they do is they actually make those systems work in a secure and documented way. Welcome to the Beginner's Guide to AI. Today, again, with the interview session here, with lots of insights into how firms can, in the practical way, use AI systems. So today we have Guillaume Moutier. He is principal consultant of the AI business unit at Red Hat. And the thing is, I can talk a lot, but the thing is, Guillaume is probably one who can tell you better what he does there. And yeah, let's start with the first question. Guillaume, why AI?
Oh, why AI? Okay. First, let me give you a little bit of background because originally, I was a customer from Red Hat. I only joined 5 years ago. Okay. Prior to that, I was working in higher education and research. I was the CTO of a large university in Canada. Okay. Back then, I was working on providing our researchers and our students with tools so that they could process data. Okay. Back in the days, a long time ago, 2016, 2017, you know, uh, there, no one was talking about AI. It was data science. Okay. But at the end of the day, it was the exact same thing. How can I process my data? How can I extract some knowledge from my data? And how can I produce new things out of my data? Okay. Somewhere around 2021, 22, I don't know where from, but the artificial intelligence term was more or less coined, or at least was more broadly used in the public. But it's just a continuum. It has always been there. People have always been working with their data in one form or another. Now it's more pervasive, especially because of ChatGPT. That was a huge revolution, but it was a huge revolution for the public. Okay. But in businesses, in research and everything, all those techniques and everything were already heavily used. So it's more like now it's public and everyone can access it, or at least now understand that they are using it in their day-to-day life. It was the case before, they just didn't know.
And you used it before, or you started then as a CTO, you used already and analyzed data with it. And
Yes, it was the exact same processes. Although back in those days, the emphasis was more on what is called predictive AI. That
Mm.
is, okay, based on the data we've seen in the history or whatever, we are trying to predict something that can happen. Okay. Standard use cases are with, for example, credit card fraud detection. When your bank calls you, hey, there is something that is weird that's happening with your spendings and everything.
Mhm.
That's AI. That's a model that has been trained on a large amount of data that analyzes, your spending habits, where you are locating and everything, and makes a prediction. There's a good chance that, sorry, Mr. Fisher, but your credit card has been stolen or something. We have
Mhm.
detected something. That's predictive AI. So prediction based on something that was happening. Or detection, using image detection. The obvious thing is, of course, face recognition, all the things we hear, but that's not where it's used the most. Where it's used the most is in factories to detect defects in the things that you are building. You're taking tons of images, you have video cameras that are detecting maybe moving parts or that are taking pictures of a part that you have just built and detect any defect. Okay, you have trained the model on tons of images to detect something that is happening. Okay, so it has been there for a long time. Okay, those kind of things. Now we have generative AI that has come into play with what people know more now about, like the ChatGPT. Okay, tell me a story about this or that, or can you write an email that will do all that? So here, it's the data is used to provide some context to the artificial intelligence model to teach this model on how to write such emails, and then it can do something else. Okay, so that's how this works. But you see, with those few examples, you can see that AI has been there for a long time. Okay.
This credit card thing, probably many people had that once in a while when they travel to a unexpected location and suddenly the credit card was closed. Yeah. That happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have to call and see. Yeah, but interesting. Yeah.
But you know, back in the days, sorry, but back in the days, we were more talking about algorithms. You know, oh, there we have trained an algorithm to detect this or that. Well, still, it's an artificial intelligence model. Okay, because artificial intelligence, if you look at the definition, it's something that mimic, the human brain. Okay, so whatever you are doing, like in the fraud detection, it could be a human looking at all your spending and saying, oh, I think there is something weird happening here. Okay, or there's a good chance that the card has been stolen. So here, that's the model doing that. So it's like mimicking what a human could do. So that's artificial intelligence. Totally falls under the definition. So artificial intelligence is not, only those Star Trek stuff. Please, computer, do this for that or me. No, it's much broader than that.
Yeah. And in the background, that leads me to the next question. What is Red Hat actually doing with AI now?
Okay, what Red Hat is doing is what we've always been doing. Okay, there are lots of technologies or applications in the open source world, okay, that are there. What Red Hat does basically is to take all those open source projects, upstream projects, look at them and bring them to what we call an enterprise grade level. Okay, but what do I mean by that? In an enterprise, in an organization, you have certain constraints or rules that you must respect in terms of security, reliability, scalability of your workloads. Okay, because setting up an application on your desktop for just for yourself, it's pretty easy. And if it breaks, okay, you will fix it. And that's not the same when you have 10,000 customers, on your website doing some interaction with you or anything. So for them, you have to have this scalability, security, and the rest. So what Red Hat does is that for all those types of applications or infrastructure solutions or things like that, we just raise the level of those projects to make them enterprise usable. Okay, so here is the same with AI. We have now lots of open source projects, open source models, and everything. So we do the exact same thing. We look at those different projects and we integrate them in an easy to use, secured, scalable, blah blah blah, and so on, enterprise grade way, so that it's usable by companies. Of course, on top of that, we provide consulting services and integration and support and the rest. But the core of this is to make all of this usable by companies.
Do you have an example? Do you take like a Llama model for a firm, or how does it really work? I mean, it's still on an abstract level.
Okay, so to give you an example, data scientists or people, they will often work with an environment, an IDE, a programming environment, and most of times this environment will be Jupyter. Okay, it's like your standard development environment, but for data scientists. Okay, there is a fantastic project, what we call upstream, an open source project that's called Kubeflow. The goal of Kubeflow is to make running those Jupyter notebooks very easy for the user, so that they can just go to their environment, just a few clicks, okay, launch a new environment with this amount of memory and CPU so that I can work. Okay, under the scene, it will make some calls to Kubernetes to launch some containers, all the things that the data scientist doesn't know anything about nor doesn't care. Okay, I just want to work with my Jupyter notebook. Okay. That's the Kubeflow project, the upstream project. What we have done as part of our product that is called OpenShift AI is that we've taken some parts of the Kubeflow project that we have remodeled a little bit, that we have properly, as I explained, secured and make and documented and everything, so that now we have, as part of our OpenShift AI product, we have the capability to launch those Jupyter environments. And it's the same to serve a model or to create data pipelines that will process your data following different steps. All the kinds of features that as a data scientist, a machine learning engineer, machine learning operatives, all the kind of tools I would want to use. Okay, we gather the best of breeds or what we think are the best projects out there to create this cohesive environment that is OpenShift AI. Okay.
It is
We
kind of
have,
usable, yeah, for the people.
yeah, and we have other products coming along like Rel AI that will allow you to fine tune your models. And we have other initiatives to integrate more and more AI inside our own products, like Ansible Lightspeed. That is, Ansible Lightspeed is a way to help you create all those scripts that will help you deploy or manage your infrastructure. Okay, but here it's powered by a model that will help you create those scripts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. This is I think this, if I think of a firm and there's some open source stuff, and I'm like, always is a critical thing. What you said is not only the security, but the documentation. I try to do stuff, and then you go to the internet, some simple programming stuff, and if you don't find documentation, it is like really, yeah, alone the documentation. I think that is kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that people often confuse, open source with being free and accessible.
Mhm.
So why would I buy something if it's open source? Yeah, it's open source. Let me take an analogy. You have to redo your bathroom or your kitchen. Okay, you can go to Home Depot or Home Hardware or whatever. I'm in Canada, so okay, that's the kind of things we have. But wherever you are in the world, you can buy all the materials and tools and everything. That's like open source. Of course, you have to buy them, but you're free to use all those sources. But do you have the skills to to build your kitchen? Do you have the time?
Mhm.
Because maybe you don't have 6 months to spend on this project to redo everything by yourself. So here at Red Hat, what we
Yeah.
do as part of this is to invest this amount of time to understand how this open source project is working, to package it properly, to make it usable, to document it, and to help our customers implement it. Okay, so there's always this huge amount of work to do and skill sets that it needs to be able to implement properly those things in production. So yeah, there's definitely an added value, and it's even more. I think in my mind, it's even more important for AI because it's such a relatively new subject that there aren't that many people out there with the skill sets to deploy properly those kind of solutions. Okay, there are more and more people now getting fresh out of the university who are more versed into modeling and model training and the rest. But in my opinion, that's not the whole thing. Training a model nowadays, okay, it's becoming more and more easy, but deploying it in production at scale with the right level of reliability and everything, that's something else. And that's the skill sets that are now in demand. So yes, you can do all of this by yourself, or you can rely on a partner like Red Hat to help you on board and use those technologies.
And yeah, the classical make or buy decision. And if you're a scientist, you want to do the science and you don't want to, yeah, it makes sense. Totally makes sense.
And remember, I told you I was a customer before. Okay, so
Yeah.
at the end of the day, for me as a former CTO, it was always a business decision. Yes, maybe I had the team to do this and what, but I had my 45,000 students to deliver services to. I had my 2,000, 3,000 researchers and teachers who were waiting for a service. So that's the business choice. Do I do this? Do I do all of this myself and take 2-3 years to implement the solution? Or do I rely on some partner to help me and squeeze this time to maybe a few months? That's the kind of decision you have to make.
It's funny because it's costs anyway. It's not there. There's no free lunch. It's a classical example of that. Yeah.
Well, there could be free lunch, but if we take this analogy, free lunch, but then you have to go do your own harvest and maybe raise your cattle and prepare the dishes and everything. Takes time.
Exactly, and the time costs money in a business sense. Yeah, that perfectly leads to the business question. So, how do you think, or what is your perspective? Do you see business adopting AI now? Do they come to you? Do they have to be forced to use AI, or do they stand in a big line in front of a building?
Well, right now, almost every company, at least in our standard customer base, they all have some kind of AI initiative, okay, which can be to the full implementation of a solution, but can also be, okay, maybe the initiative is only looking at what we could do with it. Okay, just experimentation. Okay, so it covers this spectrum, but at least everyone has to think about it, and it's normal. It's like new technology. Like, okay, the internet is out. What do we do with that? Is there a business opportunity for us, maybe to increase our sales, or to increase our productivity, or to make it easier for people to work? There's something, maybe there is something to be done, maybe not, but at least we have to have some interest. Okay, so yes, everyone is now interested, but don't forget what I told before. A lot of people were already using AI, even if it was not called that way, okay, for automated processing of data. Okay, when you submit, an insurance claim, or when you want to enter into a contract with a company and you have to submit some of your data, where it is analyzed. Maybe it's a human, maybe it's some model that's been trained to, just go across all your data and figure out, okay, should we do business with these people? So that was already happening. Now it's just speeding up a little bit more because of the generative AI capabilities that we have.
This comparison to the internet, because there are some, in Germany, in Canada probably as well, some of the big firms that just failed because they did not go to internet. It sounds like in AI, people are at least a little bit smarter and adapting faster. Do you follow that opinion, or?
I think it goes faster because the access is easier. Okay. If we go, I'm old enough to remember those times in the late 90s. Back then, I was still living in France. So in the late 90s, the internet was there, but it's not everyone who had access. Okay, either the companies or the people. So here, even if you had, okay, I got to look into this internet thing. Maybe the access to it and how to try it was a little bit more difficult, so it took some time to figure this out. But now AI, with the launch of ChatGPT, Midjourney for image generation and all those kind of things, people have direct access right now, right from their phone, and it happened in the course of a few months. Okay, so now you cannot say anymore that, oh yeah, but it's a future technology that will take a few years to deploy and what. No, it's there. You cannot ignore it. Okay, so the adoption rate is much faster. Okay, all the tools are there now. That what has also changed a lot is that open source is now fully recognized as something you can count on. If we go back 20 years ago, it was deemed as horrible, hell, or whatever Microsoft people told at the time. It's not true anymore. Open source is powering the internet. Remove open source, there's no internet. Remove open source, there are no websites, there are no intelligent cars, there are no things like that. Okay, so now with the power of open source and the creativity and all the things that are emerging out of this AI trend, it goes fast. It goes very fast. Honestly, between us, it's kind of hard to keep pace with everything that's happening. It's literally from one day to the other. Now, when I'm discussing with customers, I have to be very careful when I say, no, no, it's not yet possible, or it will be soon. I have to check myself before saying that, because maybe the day before something was published that makes something that they were asking for possible, which it was not a week ago. So it's fast, but it's cool, because at the same time it encourages adoption. People can quickly see what can be done with it, and now they are discovering what cannot be done. That's interesting.
That is actually a good distinction, because before, I think that, so you think we come in a phase where people now, like, not, we are out of this wild experimentation and coming to more like rational thinking about it, or did I understand that right?
Yes, I think we've reached a point where now there are enough people to understand what's going on, what can be done, and again, what cannot be done. Okay, we're not definitely not yet at the fully autonomous AI. Okay, we're still years away from that, from what I know. But that means that people can now focus on the business outcomes of this. Okay, now that I know what is feasible or not, that now that we've done some experimentation in the past year, in the past month, now I can focus on a real business use case. How can I leverage this new technology to offer something new, to improve the work I'm doing? Now we're at this. I think for most people we are at this level. Okay, so much better understanding and grasping of what can be done.
That is kind of quick, I think. This is a quick adoption. I mean, I'm a little bit surprised, I have to say.
This is definitely a quick adoption, but you know, if you look, I don't know, but do you use ChatGPT a lot for yourself? I
Yeah.
guess so.
Yeah.
When there is something, for example, English is not my first language. I'm from France. Originally moved to Canada 20 years ago. So there are some things some concepts that I still don't grasp, or some cultural stuff I don't know about or anything. Well, now, back in the days, like only 2 years ago, I would open Google and do a search and browse some sites to get some explanations. Okay, what are the rules of baseball? I don't
Oh
understand
God.
anything about this thing. But now I can have direct access to my favorite AI and just ask it, oh, can you explain to me in 2 paragraphs the basic rules of baseballs? Because I have a meeting with some friends, we're going to watch a game, and I need to mostly understand what's going on.
I think that is not leading to something. My wife is Cuban, and Cubans are also really into baseball. And it's like, I have the feeling like on Tuesday there are different rules than on Thursday or so. That's like they have like such a rule book. It's like more like, let's say,
Yeah.
American football is a little bit easier. No, but yeah, the question, the cultural thing, I find interesting. For me, it's more like language, because English is also, people will also hear that it's not my language, and I speak it, yes, but writing an email to a native speaker is always a problem. If I would write to you, I wouldn't care so much, because I know you're also not a native speaker. But writing to someone who's native in English, I always put it in ChatGPT. Yeah, that's, yeah, just to correct it. It's like, yeah.
And there are tons of applications that we don't know yet about. I guess we are at this point that, okay, now we roughly understand how this works, at least in deploying, implementation, and the rest of all those things. But which impact it will have on the society and everything, we don't know yet. We're just discovering these new avenues. As I told you, I come from higher education, so I'm really interested in the links that can be made to that. So there are some studies that have been published right now that are very interesting on how to use those conversational AIs as teachers, and the results are tremendous.
Yeah.
Because now, instead of having one teacher in front of 30 people, 30 students, and of course, obviously not having time to have to have conversations with each of them and everything, so it's kind of hard. But now, and maybe in a few years it will be true, totally true, you can have a one-on-one tutor that can adapt the teaching to the level of the students, can take the time it wants to repeat, to explain a little bit more if the student struggles with something, or on the contrary, to go faster if the students has the right has already understood all the concepts. It was used recently to learn new languages. That's fantastic. There are tons of applications to learn a new language, but it's mostly repetitive. And yes, okay, it adapts to your level, but it's not the same as having an almost real teacher that can have a full conversation with you, correct your errors as you are making them. Oh, you shouldn't have said that because grammatically it's incorrect. Let me introduce this new concept in the grammar. That's fantastic. So that's the type of usage we don't know yet about. That may happen or not. We'll see.
I mean, it's already quite good at that. The voice mode of ChatGPT, even the old one I use for learning my Spanish, can talk to you, or pronunciation. I mean, French is I remember from school the different sounds, oh, bon, vin, blanc, but I don't get it. But the 5 different sounds, and the machine could correct it. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things coming around the corner. But you already talked about the risks, and I can't resist to ask you my classical question here. The listeners of the podcast will know that, and that's how possible do you think, or probable do you think, is a Terminator scenario, a Matrix scenario, a scenario where all humans, the rest of the humans, are in a zoo for the for the bots to enjoy?
Okay. My personal take on that, it's science fiction. Okay. And I'm a huge fan of science fiction literature. I've read almost all kinds of genres and everything. Let me go back to the 50s. In the 50s, science fiction was about nuclear refrigerators. And by year 2000, people crossing the solar system and everything. That was the kind of science fictions we had back in the 50s. So here, I would say that's the exact same thing that we are doing. We are taking a new technology and we are just fantasizing about it. Honestly, I'm pretty sure no one knows right now what can happen. Okay. And if we have to learn some lessons from history, it's very hard to to do some predictions on how a new technology will be used. Okay. Because that's what's fantastic with human minds, and that's where it differs from artificial intelligence, is that we humans are really good at inventing new things and inventing new ways of using things. So will AI be used for the best or the worst? Honestly, can be either, but it's irrelevant. It's how we humans will decide to use it. Okay, so it's another just another technology, and if we stick to the facts, we're real far from those scenarios with Terminators and everything. Yes, we will have more and more autonomous artificial intelligence, but very focused on specific tasks or kinds of skills that they will want to do. Like, yes, maybe autonomous cars. Yes, this will happen. We have mostly all of the technologies to do that. But will those autonomous cars be able to act as your personal chef or cook? No, they won't have been trained for that. They will be totally autonomous to drive vehicles or whatever on the street, but that's about it. So you see, I will see more and more very very applied solutions to that, again, for which usage we have not yet dreamed of, but more than something that will replace all the creativity that human mind can have. Definitely. So no, I wouldn't worry about it at this point.
That is good. No, this question for all the listeners is like, there's always those thoughts that come up. I'm also totally. I mean, I started my youth with reading science fiction. I still read it, and then one has that in the mind, in your mind. So it's like good to ask the people out there how probable it is. So yeah, I like the idea that you have like systems doing one thing and not the other, and so they're not so versatile. They can't just take over the power. But we don't know.
Because remember, all those things are still somewhat hard and costly. Okay, so when you invest money in training a model or deploying a model, you have to be very careful in the choices you make. Okay, you just don't do it just for the sake of it or just to have fun or whatever. At the end of the day, those technologies still cost money. Okay, so that means you have to be mindful about what you are doing, choosing the right solution for what you want to do. Okay, and that's what we are trying to explain with our solutions at Red Hat. Okay, it's not about having the best model out there or the best solutions or whatever. Is what fits your business needs. Okay, and this is something you will hear a lot about from us, being mindful of the costs associated to that. Okay, there are tons of fantastic solutions right now out there, the kind of solutions we are providing for model serving, the types of models that we are providing, that totally fits business needs, the most common business needs. You don't have maybe to choose the best costly solution out there. You have to stay focused on what you want to achieve business wise. And that's something that's also people will come to realize. Right now they're experimenting, but we are coming at a point where you have to rationalize all these investments and everything. Again, it's like what I was explaining, bringing this to enterprise grade. Enterprise grade also has this concept of how much does it cost versus what money can bring back into the company. So
actually, the money argument, I really like that, because that is kind of why should I develop a Terminator? There's not it's not a coincidence that happens. Yeah, people do stuff, and that's like you said, also is coming back to Red Hat. People come to you and ask for solutions, and they get solutions, not for this is doing everything, cooking and driving, like you said, but for specific cases, because they have to kind of finance it, and AI is not cheap, you know.
Yep. What we are trying to explain to people, yes, you can use, let's say, maybe a very large model that knows everything about everything. That costs a lot to run. Okay. But if your goal is to provide, let's say, a chatbot to interact with your internal documentation or whatever, maybe a much smaller model that you can fine tune locally, directly to your own documentation will, and it's proven, it will perform much better than the large model that knows everything. So here, what we help customers do is to sort out those different solutions and find the best ones that are adapted to their use case.
Yeah, great. And I think that's a good end of the interview, because that's really like focus on what you need out there, people, because you can have everything, but like with all business decisions, focus on efficiency and getting stuff that really helps you. And actually, the last thing, like a small model, fine-tuned on documentation you have, I think that is a really good use case in general.
Yeah. The question should never be, what can I do with AI? Because I will always answer, Depends. What do you want to do?
Mhm.
Then I will find, and maybe it's not AI that will answer your business business case or question. Okay, it's something that you still must consider. That maybe the answer is not the AI, but if there is an AI solution to what you want to achieve, then yes, we can help you find the best solution for you.
That's great. Guillaume, it was nice talking to you. Can you tell us where we can reach you, where we can reach Red Hat with the AI topic? And I would also put everything in the show notes.
Yeah, of course, if you want to learn more about Red Hat solutions regarding AI, you go to the redhat.com website, and we have this AI section that will get you all the information you want to know about our solutions, OpenShift AI, upcoming Red Hat Enterprise Linux AI, Ansible Lightspeed, OpenShift Lightspeed, all those lines of products that are already there or that we are bringing to the market in the coming month. So that's where you will find all those resources. If you want to reach out directly to me, you can. Easily findable on LinkedIn, GitHub. I publish tons of resources, tutorials, and things like that to help people onboard and use those kind of solutions.
Perfect. Thank you for the interview, and let's see where the whole thing leads. And thank you for having you. Thank you for
Thanks a lot for the invite. This was a nice discussion.
Thank you. So we learned a lot of things that on the surface things might look easy, but in reality it's never as easy, and we all know that. But firms like Red Hat help us make things easier, or at least calculable. So thanks again, Guillaume, for the great interview. And people, don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter at argoberlin.com/newsletter and subscribe to the podcast as well. I'm looking forward for the next time hearing and seeing you. Dietmar from argo.berlin.